In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to another session of lessons from my mother. It's been a while. I would be the first to admit it's been a few weeks, maybe a couple of months, because I've been traveling and because I've had to move the series from Mondays to Sundays. So it's been a bit of an adjustment. But now I'm going to be back because I want to finish this series this year and then compile it into a book and get it published as my first non-fiction co-authored with my lovely mother. And from next week onwards, I think I'll also start getting back into the rhythm of interviewing some people I know, like professors and friends and employers, and just to get them to talk about their mothers a little. It's an invaluable relationship, and I'd love to build that with them. So today's lesson: marry when ready. Lesson 67. I understand that I have less than 20-ish lessons from my mum, and then a couple left from my friends to make it an even 100, which was my goal from the beginning. So today's lesson, marry when ready, is one that has pervaded our conversations for 30 years. 30 years or so, because around the age of 5, 6, children start asking the questions of where did you come from? How did you meet my father? And where did I come from? How was I born? And in every culture, parents have these stories. Oh, there was this and there was that. And my mum was, because my mum's a doctor, like a physician, and so is my father. So there was no story about storks or tooth fairies and so on and so forth. It was more, well, you come out, you were in my stomach, and then, um, and I never thought, oh, because at that time you don't know what a uterus is, you don't know how children are born, but you do know that. Okay, I used to be in here, and because my younger brother was born after me, by definition, so oh, mum's pregnant. There's our younger brother is inside her belly right now, so we just say, oh, he's inside her. So those things were answered, and one of those questions was about how did you meet my father? And she said, well, we met at university because we're both doctors. We met in, in the beginning of university, and then throughout university, there was a gentle, distant sort of a courtship, which is gallant and with dignity and integrity and respect. And then gradually, my father moved closer and closer and closer, and now they've been married, thankfully, for 41 years. And I'm God bless them, 100 years of marriage and joy and happiness. I love them both so much. So then invariably the question starts happening: who am I going to marry? Or I'm going to marry this person, because the term um, is introduced into your lexicon as a child. You start realizing, I've noticed around the age of 7-ish, you start realizing what marry means, because your parents tell you, well, this is daddy, and we got married, and these are pictures of our wedding, and so on and so forth. And you ask your brothers, and you ask your siblings and cousins. It's common knowledge. So for 30 years, we've been talking to my mum about who to marry, when to marry, why to marry, blah, blah. And her stance has been constant, but it has become more and more nuanced as we've grown older. And she's never actually uttered the words marry when ready. But the crux of the lesson is this. And because we're four boys in this house, and it's a fabulous house. If you ever think about having four boys as children, it's a fabulous house. I don't know what people tell you about the violence and fighting. I don't recall anything like that. It's a fantastic house. I absolutely loved growing up with brothers. Um, and she'd give the same advice to all of us. It wasn't, oh, this is your sister, so it's different advice. It would be the same advice to all of us. And she'd say something along the lines of, um, so somebody's messaging me. I'm ignoring that right now. So, and she'd say something along the lines of, as a man, as a boy, you're going to grow up into a man, and it's fine to like girls. You can like them, but try to focus on your studies. And we'd say, why? But she's so pretty. Or what if I fall in love? And she's like, no, no, no. You'll fall in love again, but try to focus on your studies. Try to get a good job. Try to work really hard. Try to be the best at what you're doing. And those things will resolve in their own time. We're not ignoring them. We're your parents. We know what to do. We've done it. We're not ignoring those things, but we know what the best timing for it is. And at the age of 10, if you find a girl attractive, because you're 10 or 12, that's not the right time to go and marry that person. Accumulate a little knowledge, education, resources, experience. Gather a bit more from the world before you decide to attach yourself to just another person without knowing them at all. And how can you know them when you don't even know yourself? So I'm this is all exposition. I'm extrapolating from her lessons because she would say these things and she would repeat the message so it sinks in. But when you extrapolate it conceptually, all these things make sense. And she said you need to accumulate resources because love doesn't satisfy hunger. You can't. Love doesn't. What was it? What was it? In Urdu we say "प्यार से पेट नहीं भरता," which means love doesn't satisfy an empty stomach, or love doesn't satisfy the hunger of an empty stomach. Something along those lines. If I had said love doesn't fill your stomach, that's not the correct translation. So she said, obviously love the person you're with, but what do you have to offer? If you have nothing to offer, why are you with someone? You need to be thinking along these lines. So, and she'd give us different examples of people. Some people who married young and did well, some people who married young and did not do well, and many people who married men. This is firstly about men right now. Many, because there were 4 boys, many people who would marry at that age and they would have a house and they'd have a car and they'd have savings and investments and resources, and they'd say, look, that gentleman is 30 or 35 and now he's decided to settle down after working this long and this hard and accumulating this and making sure his parents are fine and making sure that whoever he ends up marrying does not come into a burdened household but comes into a household where things are pretty stable. And my mum has preached stability for the longest time. In fact, it may be one of, apart from honesty and truth, I think stability slash responsibility, which is stability is a responsibility. I think this would be something, one of our core lessons is stability. And to do that, money is important, man. There's no two ways about it. When I was younger, when I was a late teen, I was a rabid socialist. I used to campaign for the Respect Party in England with George Galloway, who was quite far left. And I was 19, I was 20, and I was like, I'd go and say, education is a right, not a privilege. How dare you? Healthcare for all. I do all of them. I've been through that to now be a complete capitalist right now. But I there was a time in my late teens and late teens mostly where I would say money is not important. Love, 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 my dear boy. Love is what matters. I'd philosophize and I'd quote movies and books, and my mum, she wouldn't push back. She wouldn't push back. She'd know. She knew at that time in her older age, in her middle age, she knew there's no point of contestation with a teenager. The teenager has infinitely more energy than you do. The teenager has a tenth of the knowledge and experience that you have. And if you engage a teenager saying, no, this is right, this is wrong, they're going to tire you out. And then they're going to believe they're right. So my mom would never say, oh, no, you're wrong, that movie is wrong. She'd say, yes, very good, very good. But however, that love has to be supported with this foundation of economics. That doesn't mean to say that there's a fixed age of marriage, because I have an elder brother who got married at 24. I have another elder brother who got married at 30. I myself went through my first marriage of 23, 25. My younger brother around that age too. I know people, a good close family friend of ours, who got married when he was 40 to a much younger lady, and they've been together for, wow, 19 years, almost 20 years. 20 years next year. So and happy, and I think they have three children, and they're very very happy. And that gentleman took a long long time in accumulating and saving, and said, now I can buy my own house, I can do this, I can do that. Now I'm ready to settle down. Or maybe he had had some prior relationships which had not worked out, and he said, now I'm ready. And uh, this topic about readiness is can't be influenced by exogenous factors, external factors. Just because the world believes today that 18 is too young to marry, that's not an answer. The world does not dictate what is right and wrong. We have the world, because that's why there's a difference between what is lawful and what is morally correct, right? There's always been some sort of a distinction. There is an overlap, but there's also a distinction, because otherwise, how can you justify slavery? Um, so just because the world now believes something, and by the world, I mean 8, 12% of the world, which is America, England, Canada, Australia, some part of the world starts dictating a certain agenda, that does not mean that billions from India, China, Pakistan, Indonesia, Brazil are going to follow it, right? So, um, what she meant by ready is what you feel here, right here. And it doesn't have to do with, oh, I need to make my career. It doesn't have to do with, I want to enjoy life first and travel the world. And then when I'm tired and old, I'm ready to settle down. And it doesn't have to do with, oh, I can't wait to have children. I need to have them now. It has to do with being comfortable enough to look after another person. And that is not a gendered state. And even if you go traditionally, let's say 50 years ago, where, I mean, even today, there's a huge amount of financial burden which falls on men, less so than before. But even then, the woman isn't just sitting waiting to be fed and all the money being handed to her. No, she's looking after her husband and family just as much as he is financially. She's doing it in other manners, if not emotionally only, also practically, pragmatically. So when you reach the stage where you feel comfortable enough to look after another person, this is not children, this is spouse, just spouse, that is when you move. That is, I think, what she has meant when she says marry when ready. Because for men, typically, to reach that stage, you can't, it's hard to do at 50. It's hard to do at 18. Some people can manage to do it in the early 20s. They're those mature, sensible sorts, or the closeted sorts who haven't really experienced life at all or tried things. They just want to follow that factory mode. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, most of the world runs on factory mode. In fact, I might be a factory setting too. So that comfort takes a while, and it comes after you finish your schooling, you're out into the world, you are understanding your worth. You're not building your worth first, you're understanding your worth. And you realize, wow, I'm 25. I don't have a car, I don't have a house, I don't have a penny to my name, I don't have any character developments. I'm a normal person. I'm I I lie sometimes, I smoke sometimes, I I waste a lot of time, I procrastinate, I'm not very fit. And you start assessing yourself around that age, and you say, "Ugh, I need to start improving myself. If I want to be able to be comfortable caring for someone else, I need to care for myself first." And you can do that at 21. But typically at 21, we're still in the hamster wheel of education. You finish you finish school, then you finish college slash high school, then you finish university, and you just come out at 22 and you say, yeah, the world's my oyster. I'm going to take over. Give me the job of the CEO. What? Intern? What's an intern? So that's more likely our state of mind in the early 20s. Um, so that comfort takes a while. Now, because traditionally gender based, culturally, I would exclude Northwestern Europe and bits of North America, because now the politics has slightly shifted to say no, both have to contribute and both have to play an equal role. Egalitarianism is a very recent concept. But the other 90% of the world, so to speak, the other 6 billion or so, which is in South Asia, China, South America, Africa, they still tend to place a huge burden of finances on men's shoulders and a huge burden of child rearing, childcare, family ish stuff on women's shoulders. I'm not here to pontificate if it's right or wrong, because it does lend itself to biology and to genetics and to uh, historical cultural habits. And I, just because I grew up in a developing country, then moved to a developed one, and now to another developed one, I am really not comfortable or even willing to say that culture is wrong and that culture is right based on what. I believe cultures are different and one can learn from both. And when you gain something, you always lose something. So if you are aiming for egalitarianism, you're also losing some other things which might have been beneficial. But those other things are moving away from egalitarianism. So for women, um, marry when ready is less to do with financial resources and it's more to do with where you are mentally and emotionally, spiritually. Um, and do you feel you are comfortable enough to look after someone else? This obviously includes your spouse and by extension, the children. And if you are in a collectivist culture, like most of the world, it also includes the in-laws, brothers, sisters, and so forth. And by look after, it doesn't mean that you slave away in the kitchen, not at all. Many houses in I can speak for Pakistan particularly. Many houses in Pakistan have housekeepers, multiple housekeepers, especially if you're even middle class. Not lower classes is a different story, but even if you're middle class, forget upper middle, lower middle, and middle also have housekeepers because everyone's either working or they can afford it. So um, they have housekeepers. So looking after someone does not mean you cook for them and you're sweating in the kitchen and you're cleaning the house. No, no, no. You can employ housekeepers for that. I've seen it. Looking after means emotionally, mentally, physiologically, phenomenologically, existentially. You're there for them. So if your brother-in-law is going through something difficult, the least you can do is everything okay? Do you want to talk to someone? Rather than saying, well, I don't care about you because you don't matter to me. I'm going to go enjoy myself. No, that is the responsibility. And that's a sort of small responsibility, is to listen to people, to engage with people and try to um, support them. And it doesn't mean that you looking after your mother-in-law or your father-in-law does not mean that you just prostrate in front of them and venerate them at the status of gods. No, not at all. What it means is, as you would look after an elderly person who you care for, just that, because they were here before us and they've created their son and raised their son well enough that I want to marry their son. So I want to look after these good people. It's that practically and pragmatically, these notions obviously get turned and twisted based on each family structure. So some families would say, no, now that you've married into our family, you must cook and clean. I understand that that does happen. And some might say, no, no, now you're here. We want to treat you like a princess. Just look after the children and your husband and be happy and travel and whatever. There's a huge variety. But readiness in that regard is emotionally ready. Is emotionally ready to be able to say, I know who I am, and I can now look at somebody else and empathize. It's hard to empathize when you're a teenager. You must be incredibly sensitive and attuned to people's emotions if you can empathize at 15. I still have trouble empathizing, but I'm insane. Um, but you need that engagement with people, some experience to be able to say, I'm not you. I haven't been through what you have, and I'm not going through what you have, but I can understand. I know how to make you feel better. And people always say empathy is. I actually don't believe empathy is a choice. I believe once you reach that stage with someone, not stage in life, but a stage with someone, whether it's a best friend, whether it's your parents, whether it's your spouse or children, you empathize by default and you support by default. You don't say, well, I've known this guy for 20 years and therefore I can know how he feels, therefore I feel it, and therefore I must. I think it is instant. And that instant instinct to provide that support for women and for men cannot happen at a very young age. It takes some time, unless you were burdened with a lot of responsibility when you were younger. It takes some time for you to say, yeah, I know how you feel. And I can, not I can, I want to make you feel better. I want to take that burden off your shoulders and I want to help you relax. And because we're all humans at the end of the day, I know even today, I'm not going to get into the social media politics of it, obviously, but even today, there's always this argument about you must earn this much money, you must look like this, you must be this age, that age. But essentially, marriage is a partnership, and that partnership is obviously tied to children and parents and the wider family. And it's all about looking after the other person, caring for their needs, and be willing to provide for their needs. And those needs can be financial, or they can be emotional, or they could be physical. And by physical, I don't mean only sexual. They could be, I have a need to run every day. I have a need to go out. I have a need or a strong desire to eat really good food every day. I'd love for you either to cook it for me or to go with me every time I go out, because some people just have a small appetite and some people have gigantic ones. Maybe it's a need to embrace incredible music every day, and other people just like, I rarely listen to music. I don't really listen to that much music. I sing more than I listen, so but some people need to listen to that music. And if somebody who doesn't listen to music ends up being with someone who does, both of them have to realize that, oh, she likes music. Maybe I can start listening to things that she likes. Oh, he doesn't like music. Maybe I don't have to play it 24/7. And you both bend a little, and you compromise, and you build the whole structure on top of that. I think that was the essential lesson. One can always make arguments about what is ready. When you have $3 million, that's when you're ready. No, I don't agree with that. I believe I believe you know it. I believe at some level you know it, and that's never external. It's always internal. You and it doesn't depend on the person. That I can be damn sure about. It doesn't depend on who's in front of you. I know movies and books would have you believe, well, I never wanted to get married, but then I met her and I realized, or then I met him and I realized. No, it's in you. It's it's the same feeling you have when you realize, I don't want to do this job anymore, or I want to move to another country, or I want to go back and do my masters and something along those lines. It's in that domain, to be very frank. But I'm going to stop here. I've been speaking for almost 25 minutes. Have I will come back next week with another lesson. Please do share your thoughts. If you disagree, feel free to disagree. I'm happy with your disagreements. I welcome them. Um, just try to remain respectful in the comments with the language, but I welcome your disagreements. And I would look forward to seeing you all again next week on Sunday. Take care.